what makes a game fun? Is your favourite game even fun? Fun is completely subjective to the player, and since working on my own game, I've really had to think about how to make my game fun. A game doesn't necessarily need to be fun. It could have a heart-wrenching story that will keep the player gripped to the game until they find out how it all wraps up in the end. Or maybe someone watched a TV show that was based on a game and realised that the game looks like this if you don't have a powerful PC. But when it comes to people having fun in games, some people will just love to micromanage a family of minions in The Sims. Some people play League of Legends. Why could you just... Some players like to die over and over and over again trying to kill one Dark Souls boss. And that particular gameplay loop ties in with the first thing that I think makes a game fun: giving the player a challenge. A game that is mindlessly easy isn't fun. And on the other hand, a game that is ridiculously impossible is also not fun. The developer needs to try and hit a sweet spot of challenge in their game that won't make the game a cakewalk for the player and keep them engaged. Some may say that Souls-like games do have too much challenge in them, and if you think this, you're not wrong. And a lot of people do think that they should add a difficulty slider to Souls-like games. But those who already love the games believe that the challenge is a core part of the game and it cannot be removed. A challenge can frustrate players, especially if they're just there for the story, or if they just want to explore the world. This is why difficulty settings and difficulty sliders can be so important to a game. They give the player freedom and choice of how they explore the world that was crafted by the developer. Those who want a story-focused experience can just play on easy mode, and those who hate themselves can play on ultra-violence extreme death mode or whatever. Difficulty doesn't necessarily need to be a giant boss that stands in your way. It can be found in every single decision that a player has to make while playing your game. And this leads to my second point on what I think makes games fun, which is giving the player a choice. Some games have game-changing choices, and these are usually very story-heavy games such as Life is Strange. These choices can lead to a character's death, or sometimes something even more extreme. However, such large decisions are not very common in games, and I think the most common decisions the players have to make in games are micro decisions. For example, say you run into an enemy base in a game. As the player, you can just go in all guns blazing, but this might use up a lot of your ammo that you've saved up. Or you could sneak around, carefully taking them down one by one, conserving all your ammo. One game that pulls this off flawlessly is Tears of the Kingdom. Please play this game if you can, it's amazing. It's the sole reason that it's taken me so long to make a video. There's almost an infinite number of ways you could approach an enemy. You can just run up to enemy bases as you would normally, with a sword in hand and killing them all. However, this will use up a lot of durability on your weapons, and even some materials now, due to the new fuse mechanic. Or, you could use stealth, and just take them all down one by one. If the enemy is looking quite tough, just take a step back, use a portable cooking pot, and cook a nice meal that will give you a big buff. Or, if you really want to just get it over with, build a giant death machine. Constantly having these small choices that the player has to make keeps you immersed and makes every interaction unique. It allows for the player to express themselves and be as creative as they want, and the majority of the time, the more creative you are, the better you're rewarded in the end. In my game, I'm hoping to add a lot of different movement options, so that when the player runs into a difficult platforming section, maybe they just need to change what they're using, and they'll be able to overcome this platforming challenge much easier. The last core feature of games that I want to talk about is making the player feel powerful. As you progress through a game, you'll naturally get better. Your understanding of the core mechanics improves, you'll become familiar with certain areas in the game, and you'll pick up on repeated patterns such as platforming challenges or enemy movesets. You may not even notice you're really improving, as in most games, the world around you will scale with you, so that you are always up against a challenge. However, this power spike is especially noticeable if you return to an olden area. Here, all those weak enemies that you were struggling with at the beginning of the game are now a breeze to go through. There's nothing like returning to the forgotten crossroads in Hollow Knight. After you've collected just a few pale ores, you start one-shotting all the enemies here. And you just feel so strong because you start one-shotting everyone. What happened? Games can also create a more artificial power spike. As you go through a game, enemy health big number, and you need weapons that do big number damage. So when you have all these powerful weapons and you may return to an older area, all these early game enemies will just have a lot less health, so you just start one-shotting them all. I'd say that this power spike isn't quite as satisfying, but it feels deserved. It makes you feel that everything you've done so far has been worth it, and that you are growing more powerful the more that you play. Many games have refights with older bosses, and many of these early game bosses will have easy movesets that you can dodge, as you have faced much tougher challenges by now. These are the 3 things that I feel like I notice in every game that I really find fun. From micromanagement sims like Dwarf Fortress, to games like Bloodborne which are extremely difficult. However, it is still entirely subjective to you. Whatever it is that makes the neurons in your brain release funny dopamine chemical, just keep doing it. And I just hope the things that I've talked about today I'm able to implement in my own game. If there's anything you'd like to discuss, feel free to leave a comment, or even join the Discord server. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, I'd really appreciate a like or a subscribe. And before I go, just trust me when I say League of Legends is not fun. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Please. Don't touch that game. Oh, thank the Lord. Oh my god. Ugh.